Hey, what's going on, all you Mycadelites out there? Thanks for tuning into the show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for supporting the show with your kind words on Apple Podcasts with the ratings and reviews. We have 122 five-star reviews now, and I'm loving it. Thank you so much. It warms my heart every time someone says something good about this show, or anytime someone messages me with some feedback. I love to hear from you guys. Please message me, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you can find me, on my contact page on my website at mikebrank.com. Love to hear your feedback and how to make the show better, or things that were interesting to you or not interesting to you. I love to have dialogue with you guys. And speaking of, I have a great dialogue going with my Mycadelic Inner Sanctum WhatsApp chat group. That's the WhatsApp chat group exclusive Inner Sanctum. Yours for just $19.95 a month. Act now. Callers are standing by. No, actually, you could get in the chat group just by being a Patreon supporter. So you go to patreon.com/MikeBrank, and you can donate as little as $1 a month. And I just want to say thank you to all the people that do that. It's amazing. I really, really appreciate it 1,000 million, gajillion, quadrillion %. And thank you to all the people who have donated in the past and no longer donate now, but continue to listen to the show. I understand. I know how it goes. You're putting some money towards something, and then you think, okay, I've contributed enough. That's good. And then you move on. That's perfectly normal, perfectly acceptable, and totally cool. I love all of you tremendously, and I appreciate your past support, your current support, and your future support. So, with that being said, we have a couple of big news things. Is that how you announce news? I don't know. We have some big news. We have 2 new sponsors on the show. They're both companies that are in alignment with this show and what I believe in. They're both products I've tried and I like, and I am now incorporating into my daily life. And so the first one is Hemp Bombs, hempbombs.com. They have CBD products. What happened was I got an email from today's guest, Josh, from Hemp Bombs, and he reached out to me in an email and wanted to know if I'd be interested in promoting it on the show. And I told him what I tell everybody. I said, hey, it's got to be something that I believe in. It's got to be something that's in alignment with what I do here on the show, and it's got to be something that works and that I like and that I enjoy. So I asked him to send me a little care package of some CBD products. I tried them. I like them. I love them. And I've been like, CBD, where have you been all my life? I think I've taken CBD in the past. I've never really felt anything from it. I never really had any noticeable difference or any noticeable feelings about it enough to sway me in a different direction or one or the other. I'm just like, I felt kind of apathetic towards it, I guess. But I'm telling you, I've experienced noticeable results with these Hemp Bombs CBD products that Josh sent me. And I guess really what I noticed was the most was I've always been a night owl. I've always been up all hours of the night, struggling to fall asleep, tossing and turning, really just waiting until my mind shuts down so I can pass the fuck out. And then I would wake up kind of groggy, exhausted, need to pound a coffee to kind of get focused and alert for the day. And even when I have incorporated my consistent meditation practices and breathing practices and exercise, for whatever reason, my mind, it's just when it came to going to sleep at night, it just wasn't working for me in the way that I wanted it to. So for me, these CBD products really, really, really did help. I mean, I can't tell you how happy I am with being able to take, I don't know, what am I taking? maybe like 35, 45 milligrams or something like that of CBD. Actually, which is really interesting. I think the more you take of CBD, like there's a Goldilocks zone of CBD dosages. It's not like THC where the more that you smoke or the more you take, the higher you'll get. I think you have to kind of like find your right zone. I read that somewhere. So you don't need to like overdo it. You just take a couple, see what works for you. But I'm just so fucking fascinated with the potential for CBD and what it can do, and like how it's becoming more and more in the mainstream. I mean, it's really, really exciting. It's really exciting. So, I tried them. I love them. They've helped me with my sleep like tremendously. So now I take them before I go to bed, and I'm like, I feel like, okay, I feel like now I'm getting tired and I'm ready to go to sleep. I don't need to fight it. I don't need to try. I don't need to be on my cell phone or watch like a Netflix thing to pass out or whatever. I literally just like hit the sack, man, just like right away. And I'm just like getting a solid 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night, waking up feeling refreshed and in a better mood. And this is huge for me, because if you're a longtime listener to the show, you've seen my like darker episodes, my darker side, my battles with depression. I haven't felt any of that. I haven't felt any of those dips down into depressive dark land since I've been taking this. And so, I don't know. Who knows? It could be anything, right? It could just be whatever, random chance, or it could be a combination of different things that I'm doing. But I'm noticing a huge difference, and I'm noticing the effects like right away. So I take the CBD and I notice the effects, and I'm like, okay, cool, this is working. Like I know this is working. It's not just something else. It's like this is I took it. It works. And then so like I've been waking up feeling rested, refreshed, great mood. Consistent, steady mood, which is key for me, because I've been known to be very up and down. But this has been consistent, steady, good mood, good energy throughout the day, feeling rested and refreshed. And and as long as it keeps doing that for me, I'm going to talk about it all the time. So it's just, and it's one of these things that it wasn't really something that I thought about that I needed. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of stupid when it comes to stuff like that. Like I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I guess this is just like, I guess because I've tried so many things in the past, like I mentioned, like meditating and breathing and exercise and like, I don't know, like valerian root or melatonin or stuff like that, or like warm milk or tea. And I'm just like, well, I guess this is just what I do. This is how I function. I like gave into the fact that I'm just like this mad, crazy like night owl who gets creative at night. But I've really enjoyed getting to sleep earlier at night and waking up at sunrise. It's just like it's really changing my life. It really is changing my life. I'm feeling so much better about the day. And I've always heard people talk about like wake up early and get started early, and I've always been like, fuck you tool, but the nighttime is the right time. But I'm loving this whole new lifestyle that I have going now, waking up at sunrise, being outside in the autumn weather, watching the sun come up, enjoying a coffee, and just just feeling grateful and positive and good. So that's where I'm at, guys. And you know what? I'm going to record a solo episode. You're due for a solo episode from me about my travels to Peru, coming back, the things that I've learned, the struggles that I've been through, and where I'm at right now. So stay tuned for that. But as I was saying, Josh from Hemp Bombs, he sent me over those products. I tried them. I love them. So what I wanted to do was, instead of just doing like doing a plug on the show or whatever. And, I'm going to continue to do that. I wanted to invite him on to the show to talk about CBD, to talk about hemp bombs, and also to just get to know him, find out, a little bit more about his personal journey and what brought him to this. And we also talk about something really interesting too, something that I struggled with for a while, which is, finding work that's in alignment with your beliefs and with your values. And, it can be really tough sometimes in this world that we live in, where there's this just barrage of noise of people trying to persuade you and convince you to do all sorts of crazy things that are going to make you happier or wealthier or healthier, that 99% of the time is just bullshit. So it's really cool. I'm finding myself doing those things now, moving more towards being in alignment and, and really, just finding the joy and the pleasure and the goodness that can come out of that, and not being so, I guess, angry about like the system, man, and the way things are, but like really trying to integrate our whole soulful beings into this and plant those seeds in there to make them grow and flourish into the sort of society and the culture and the economy and the market that we want to be living in. And so I see CBD as doing that. I see of like all of these things that are slowly starting to seep their way into the mainstream, doing that. And I'm a big fan of like, all of these things happening at once. I think we need this sort of like educational, scientific, research, studies that are helping people and healing people. I think we need that. We also need the people on the fringes, to really just say, no, let's like smash everything and burn it down. Like we need both, because there's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about having that, about having both. So. With that being said, so Josh came on the show, and I'm really, really glad he did. And I learned a few things about CBD. I hope you guys will too. And we talked about hemp bombs, and you'll hear me talk more about it continuing on. So. If you want to go to hempbombs.com, they have amazing stuff there. Put in the code Mike15, you get 15% off. I highly recommend it. It's really worked wonders for me, and I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't like 100% truth. And I hope you guys know that. This podcast really is about making the world a better place, improving our lives so we can live happier and healthier and decrease the amount of suffering and pain that we experience. And, when I find things that do that, whether it be products or whether it be practices or whether it be just anything that I'm learning or reading or whatever, I'm going to talk about it. So this is one of them, hempbombs.com. They have amazing stuff there, gummies, oils, stuff for your pets. They have pain freeze, all kinds of stuff. It's really cool, really great. I'm loving it. And put in Mike15 and you get 15% off. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Again, got the solo episode coming out. Got a couple episodes coming out with Ed Liu of Psychedelic Milk. Got some other cool guests lined up for the show. Again, if you have any ideas, any suggestions, hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. If you want to support the show on Patreon, go there, patreon.com/Mike Brank. Get in the WhatsApp chat group where we have awesome discussions all the time, people sharing cool content and stories. It's really, really fucking cool. And I love each and every single one of you tremendously from all areas of my heart, just not the bottom, but the top and the sides and everywhere else. And without further ado, let's get in this conversation with Josh from Hemp Bombs.
Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open you up to the possibility that everything we know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity. The opportunity.
So Josh, like how did you get into all this stuff? Like what was your intro point into this? Well, I don't know what to call it sometimes. I always ask people this sort of question, and it's like, how did you get into spirituality or Buddhism or psychedelics or cannabis or whatever it is? How did you sort of get interested in these sorts of things?
Yeah, man, I would say that the first was kind of just introspection, right? It kind of happened when I was in college. I will kind of tie in the psychedelics part of it eventually, but I would say that when I was about 19 or 20, essentially I was kind of away at college, and obviously people are encouraged to do a lot of heavy thinking, introspection, and I had personally been raised in kind of like a pretty strict Christian theology, so it was kind of felt like a little bit limiting. And
where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in Tampa, Florida. So
okay,
and that's actually where I'm actually based out of right now as well. So that's where my company is based out of. But so I was actually in school in Tampa, in college, and so basically, yeah, man, it was just doing the kind of the start of self work. I thought, where I just basically was able to separate myself enough from kind of the my parents' sort of doctrine, my church doctrine, kind of the people like my friends, and then I think it takes a lot of courage to sort of like be able to believe in yourself, right, or like believe in your own convictions. And so that was sort of like that, those first moments for me is when I was able to get enough space between me and basically like the beliefs that were laid out for me, that I kind of like found sort of like that path. And then, of course, like, I was like 21, I basically got into my first LSD trip. And basically that was really like, actually, sorry, I had one prior to that, but there was the second time, which was, a real significant event in my life. And that, I know people refer to it as different things, but that was sort of my waking up point. And then, it's sort of been like a transformation ever since that. I really feel like a completely different person. And I think it's basically just because the way I kind of like that self-talk, that self-dialogue that you have, it just completely changed after that moment.
Right. Yeah. I noticed that you said that you were able to get away and just kind of create enough space in between. That's really interesting, because it's like, yeah, you grow up in this environment and you're just kind of swimming in this water that you've known your whole life, and now all of a sudden you're in some new territory, some new oceans. You're finding Nemo. You're venturing out and seeing different things. So that's pretty cool. Did you start looking for, like, when you started to have these experiences and stuff, like, did you start looking for teachers or books or authors or guides? Was there anybody that really like appealed to you right away as like, I want to learn about this from this person or something like that?
Well, I know that you mentioned you were talking about Jung. I got into Jung fairly early too. So I don't know how exhaustive my research or my reading of him has been, but from probably 21, 22, I was getting into Jung and reading, and so he was kind of someone that was speaking to that. There was also, I'm trying to think, I can't off the top of my head, the psychology of being, like Maslow, right? So Maslow was talking about
Abraham Maslow, yeah.
Yeah, so I was getting into Maslow at that point too, and he was talking about, sort of, from a psychological point of view, he was talking about, having this sort of peak spiritual experiences, and basically like being, like kind of like what is like the highest state of being, it's like from a psychological perspective. Yeah, so those were a couple, like I said, of kind of my intros into that, and then it's sort of kind of it's so interesting. I feel like, and I'm 26 now, so I feel like there's still a lot of room to grow, but it feels like is that like I wasn't even aware that that kind of perspective was out there, because like I said, I was so kind of like boxed in by my belief system at that point that like someone like Ram Dass, who honestly, like I feel like is like the sort of like the incarnate like voice of God, like the closest thing that I could imagine to what that voice would be. I didn't know even something like that existed. So it's just one of those things where it's like I got into something and I had no idea where it was going, but sort of as like I kept going, and like even now, is that it's sort of that outside validation from other people, sort of comes into place for me. So I would say that, yeah, initially, like, Maslow, Jung, Rollo May was another person that I used to read. And then it's kind of like one thing has led to another, so, yeah.
I'm not familiar with Rollo May. Who's that?
Yeah, so he is another all these guys tend to be like psychiatrists or psychotherapists, but he was another psychotherapist. But he talks about one of the books that I've read of his was about anxiety. That's something that I personally struggle with as well, and also he talks about creativity too. So those are a couple of the books that I read about his, and if I can remember correctly, he was talking about. In the book about anxiety is that, it's sort of like anytime you're feeling anxious or whatever, you're taking it as like a threat to self. And so, obviously, like evolutionarily speaking, that really benefits you because, we have to perceive threats and, respond to them accordingly. But is that, kind of from like on a Ram Dass spiritual level is that, you're working off of your construct of self. So you're not really there's nothing really to be afraid of. And then Ram Dass talks about like anytime you do feel that suffering, that anxiety, that whatever, it's that false self or that false personality that is really threatened. It's not, the real live you, the person that you want to identify as. So that was kind of like a turning on point for me too. But yeah, it's been a while since I've read him, but he definitely has a ton of interesting stuff out there, especially like I said, in creativity and anxiety for sure.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Man, that's great. I always like to learn new things from guests, and that's definitely one I just wrote down. So I'm going to take a look into that. And yeah, man, it is really interesting. You talk about it's like more and more I talk to people, the more and more I find out we all have these kinds of similar stories. Grow up in this world where it's presented to us on this sort of 3x5 card of allowable, opinion. Like, hey, this is what's accepted and allowed in society. This is what you're exposed to, and then that forms our reality tunnel. And then it's like, all right, then maybe you have an encounter, something comes into your reality bubble, and it's like, hey, check this out. Then you go down that path. All of a sudden, a whole new world starts opening up. You start doing research. You're like, where has this stuff been my whole life? My God. Yeah. So it's always cool to hear people younger and younger finding that stuff out, so we can then make the adjustments that we need to make. So we're not, 80 years old and finally figuring it out, but at least a little bit younger, so we can live better lives. So it's good to hear that you discover that stuff at a fairly young age.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it kind of, it's kind of one of those things that saved my life. Is that I'm completely, the intervention was there at the right time because as I've been getting older too, is that I realized that so much of kind of your behaviors as you get into your adult life are things that are formed from the subconscious, and then B, childhood. So I'm fortunate enough to not have gone through tremendous traumatic things when I was younger, but everybody has their certain traumas when they're, and so I think the more that you push those down, the more they come back to bite you. So I'm really glad that kind of at 2021 when I'm still forming, my brain is still forming and all that kind of stuff, is that I was able to kind of revisit some of those traumas, look at the way I think, my thoughts in different ways. And that has really allowed me, given me a little bit of a platform for hopefully success now. And then as I'm moving forward. So that definitely was the right time for me.
Yeah. So what do you think has been some things that you've really been able to conquer and to, or at least maybe to bring to light and that's a little less scary now to work with?
Well, I mean, honestly, one of the things is, is unworthiness just in general. And, and I think that is closely tied to anxiety. Is that's something that, again, from the Ram Dass lectures, he talks about as a really, common phenomena, is that the feelings of unworthiness. So that was something that I kind of had felt, when I was, my early adulthood, and, still obviously battle today, but it's one of those things, is that just that like the feelings of not being good enough, and never being satisfied with anything, or can I do this, and the kind of the nagging self-doubt. I mean, I think that without sort of the confidence of, that the introspection and the self-work has given me, man, I'd be a little bit of a wreck sometimes. So, and I still, like I said, I'm still fairly young, and I'm still trying to, push myself to, to do things and to create things and whatever. So, one of the things actually, and I think I read a little bit about you as well, is something is stand-up comedy. Is it something that interests me, and is is like an art form that interests me. So, that's hopefully something that I'm going to be able to continue to create and get more experience in, but something that without, without any of those experiences growing up and the self-work, I definitely wouldn't have tried to do. And the second thing I would say as well is that, I'm looking into entrepreneurship and creating my own businesses and stuff like that. I work in digital marketing. So I kind of see that side of things, and I, the entrepreneurship dinner is coming up with Aubrey. But yeah, man, I think venturing off and starting your own business is something too. So I'd say maybe from the creative side and the professional side, although the fruits haven't completely shown themselves, is that, those, I think I'm a lot more capable now than I would have been.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah. Aubrey Marcus is definitely a big inspiration for me creating this show. I remember early on hearing him on Joe Rogan talking about ayahuasca, and it was a combination of him and some other people, and then me doing my own research that really led me to go and explore that. But yeah, I got to give props to him for being that sort of true, authentic self, and I think that he's doing a lot of good for a lot of people out there, especially young men. So that's cool. So is that someone that you look to as sort of, I mean, I definitely do, as sort of a model for, how to sort of move and navigate in this world and be sort of grounded and focused and happy and in that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that I don't know, because I think the thing that he really does well is that he obviously has, the spiritual side, and he comes from a place of love, but also too is the hence the entrepreneurship and all of that kind of stuff, is that he's able to function really well in the world too, which is kind of a difficult balance that people don't really seem to be able to strike up. Like, even if you're someone, I mean, you have your Eckhart Tolles and all that kind of stuff who are authors, and they they're spiritual gurus and all that kind of stuff. But as far as really being on the front lines, they may or may not be. So that's something that he's kind of in a unique position, where it seems like he's participating in both sides of the world. And, I know that's kind of something I'm sure you talked about in your podcast, and he talks about his podcast is the hero's journey, right? Yeah. And so the hero's journey isn't always about I'm kind of floating in the ethers the entire time. It's about the whole stealing the fire, stealing the inspiration, from those higher states of consciousness or whatever, and then practicing them in your daily life. And I think that's something that he really has a grip on that many other people probably haven't done. And I don't want to even I'm not trying to cite Ram Dass, but it's one of those things where even Ram Dass obviously had the history of being the Harvard professor and all that, but he kind of still he sort of left the world, left his place and he got fired, but left the education system and all that kind of stuff, and then wandered around and just sort of held conversations and all that kind of stuff. So as far as being highly invested in business and entrepreneurship and the spiritual side of things, I don't really know if there's many people doing that.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing. Because I struggled with that big time for a while. Kind of went through this spiritual crisis for a little period of time, but it was good. I mean, it was definitely part of my hero's journey. I guess I needed to experience that. And I always bring this up on the show. I talk about it a lot. I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell, who wrote the books The Hero with 1,000 Faces and The Power of Myth, and of course Carl Jung. He's one of his inspirations Jung is Campbell gets a lot from Jung. So yeah, you get this call to adventure. Like, I just want to explain it a little bit, maybe for the listeners, because I always bring it up. And it's like the first stage is you get a call to adventure. So it's like, it could be anything. This adventure, it could be anything. It could be like, hey, go to college. It could be, hey, go join the workforce. Whatever it is, it's some kind of call to challenge yourself. And if you accept that call, that's the first stage. If you refuse the call, then all sorts of crazy stuff is going to happen in your life until you get the message to accept that call. Then it goes like, you sort of go on this path where the way that Joseph Campbell explains it is when you move into that thing that you're called to do, all of a sudden doors start opening where there were only walls before. And then what you brought up, Josh, you brought up this, like, when you go into the ether, as you described it, it's like this abyss area. It's like the netherworld, the like almost like hell or something, the sort of death and rebirth period below, where you're going through this like crazy challenge. If you come out of that, you come out transformed. But then you have to return back into the world and then plug in, like, bring something back. And Terrence McKenna, Dennis McKenna explained this in with their trip down to La Chorrera to try and their whole thing with that was like trying to find a component in the psychedelic world to like bring out into reality. And that thing is like whatever we learn on these journeys, and life is a trip, like everything. So it's coming back and it's plugging back in. Took me a while to really get that message. But yeah, it is all about that return. And I know, for someone like Aubrey, like he started off, I think he was like selling, what were those products that he was selling? Like, not dildos. I was going to say dildos. It was like fleshlights. Sorry, Aubrey. I forgot for a second. Yeah, fleshlights. Not the most like, I don't know, not the most like noble item to be selling, but we exist in this sort of economy and this marketplace where we have to function. We can't be these we can't all be like just mystics and sages that live in the woods and have people serve us. So it's like we have to do something in the world. So now you're, working you're in marketing, and one of your clients, is it?
Yeah. So one of the brands. So
yeah.
Yeah. No. So one of the brands that we work with, it's called Hemp Bombs. It's based out of Tampa, but essentially what we have is a manufacturing facility here. We've got a full team of design, marketing people, sales people. And we, manufacture different brands of CBD for different kind of marketplaces. So that one is actually the first brand. It's about 2.5 years old. And that was, just something that the owners of the company who had been sort of, interestingly enough, one of them had been in like the kind of like the novelty store, sort of like the fleshlight too, not exactly that product, but kind of in that world. Yeah. And the other one came from real estate. And then they got together and someone tipped them off and said, hey, this, CBD is going to be, a big industry and all that kind of stuff. And so they started getting everything ready. And so that's really the brand, although it's not our only brand. It's the one that's really taken off.
Yeah, this is great. So it's like now that we're able to have things like this functioning in the marketplace, it opens up opportunities for people like yourself, people like me, people like the owners of the company to like really start to be in alignment with something that they care about, something that's beneficial for everybody. I mean, do you feel that that's like sort of where you're at right now, where you're like in a lot more in alignment with something that you're doing as far as a work purpose?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is always an interesting thing to, think about like the balance of money, and sort of like you said, being in alignment is an interesting question. But yeah, no, I absolutely feel that, this is something I think, the owners, while obviously they have good intentions going into it, they're running a business, but it's one of those things where they've made comments like, I would never have guessed that we would have helped this many people or that we would get this positive feedback that we're doing. Because, we have like, there's other there's other big companies as well. But, I think like our Facebook, profile on there has like, 20,000 people pretty much following it. And like we have like 500, 600 reviews, something like that, or like 5-star reviews. Basically just all people, talking about how the product has helped them. They get better. They have less, lower anxiety because of it. They're getting better sleep. They have, less chronic pain and all that kind of stuff. So definitely, it is a huge bonus when the thing that you're doing, to survive is also helping people. So.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those people, and let me tell you something. You're the fucking man, Josh, because I this wasn't even really on my radar. Like I was just like, I think I've taken some CBD in the past before. I don't know. I guess I didn't really feel much from it or something. I probably wasn't taking the right stuff or whatever. And then and you reached out to me. And you're like, hey, dude, like, I'm going to send you some CBD. I was like, yeah. Like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Like, that's awesome. And no, in all transparency, right? Because it's like I've always made it clear on this show that like I wasn't going to advertise anything or promote anything that I didn't see benefits to. And people have sent me stuff in the past before, supplements and different things. And I've tried them out, and I'm just like, hey, look, like I can't recommend this to my people because I didn't have a good experience with this, so I'm not going to just do it for some promotional purpose. But right. I think I'm serious when I say this right now. Like, I think that CBD has changed my life from the products you sent me from Hemp Bombs. I've been getting amazing sleep every night. I've had decreased pain. And I feel like I'm generally in a better mood when I wake up, probably because I'm getting a great night's sleep. I used to sort of like toss and turn a little bit. Sometimes it would be hard to go to sleep. I'd have like, things on my mind. So yeah, I did an episode a while ago about CBD, and it was kind of just a brief thing. And really, when people ask me about CBD, the only things that I know is this is what I say to them, and you tell me if I'm correct or not. But I say, well, CBD is a non-psychoactive component of the hemp plant of marijuana, and it's the second largest alkaloid in marijuana. There's 72 active alkaloids in marijuana, and CBD is a non-psychoactive component of that, and it helps with pain, and it helps you sleep, and it helps your mood. What do you think? What do you think of that? How's that? Am I missing anything?
So I would say what I'm familiar with, the terminology I'm familiar with, is that cannabinoids are in the plant. So, and as far as the number, the exact number, there are different numbers out there. I hear from anywhere from, like you said, 70 to 200. So, but yes, I mean, primarily the two major cannabinoids in there are THC number one, and then CBD would be the second one. So yeah, all of that information is correct. And then as far as your, what the benefits of it seems like those are all true, and those are all reported benefits. The only ones that we're really able to scientifically say anything about would be basically about epilepsy, because those are the ones that real clinical trials have been performed on because of the federal status. But yeah, I mean, just in terms of consumer reported benefits, I mean, that's like scratching the surface. There's so many different things, fibromyalgia, arthritis, lupus, chronic pain, acute pain, sleep, mood, anxiety, and those are just the things that I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, I would say that's a pretty fair assessment of the product.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the thing about epilepsy? You're not allowed to say that it helps. What was it again?
So because it's not regulated by the FDA, is that you are not really allowed to make I can't say on a bottle of product like this will guarantee to help epilepsy. So you basically just have to be a little bit careful on the labeling, the packaging, about the claims you're making. Because what it was is that there is some debate about where it falls on the federal scheduling, but so they actually just dropped CBD down to a Schedule 5 for a drug called Epidiolex, which is basically, and that is FDA approved, but that is used specifically for treatment of epilepsy. But a Schedule 5 means that there is therapeutic medical benefit to it. So it basically dropped from a Schedule 1 saying there's no medical benefit to this thing. It doesn't do anything to Schedule 5. But it is again one of those things where completely accessible everywhere. It's just an actual real clinical trials. The only I'm pretty sure the only thing that has been found or treated for would be epilepsy. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely enough evidence out there, enough information to suggest that it helps a lot more than just that.
Yeah, and I think you brought up the cannabinoids, and I think there's something like cannabinoid receptors, right? That like people have in their bodies, and so this seems to indicate that this is like sort of biologically or evolutionarily speaking something that we've evolved to have in our system. Is that right? Like something along those lines.
So essentially, what it is that you have. And it's been I've been away from my science a little bit for this for the last couple of months. I used to be real heavy into it, but essentially you have cannabinoid receptors and then endocannabinoids, meaning within your body. And so the kind of the naturally occurring endocannabinoids would be things like anandamide, which is the thing that is released when you were like say going for a long run or whatever, and it's called the known as the bliss molecule, which is basically is a sort of like an anesthetic feeling. So like, when you're going for a long run and your feet start to hurt, the more you run, the less you're going to feel the pain because the anandamide works, right? So that's kind of, so that kind of fits into that same receptor called CB1 or CB2. There's two cannabinoid receptors. And that one, fits perfectly. The analogy people use as a key in a lock. So that key fits in the lock and then sort of unlocks all of the, the different hormones and stuff like that basically come from that, certain connection. And then the same thing happens with CBD, is that CBD is, sort of an outside cannabinoid, but fits perfectly with those same receptors and has a lot of those same effects. So yeah, it is something that, it's, it doesn't actually occur within your body. It does fit perfectly, has, an exact, or a similar, if not exact effect to some of the natural endocannabinoids that your body produces.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm just grateful that we're at this time and place right now where that this is starting to come out as a thing. I feel like maybe like 5 years ago, I didn't even hear about CBD. It wasn't even on my radar. And I think the more and more that states start sort of pushing, I know Colorado, Washington, I think Massachusetts, is Florida legal yet, or for recreational marijuana?
Not for recreational yet. It probably will happen like in the next cycle, though. But what it is, as far as the CBD goes, is that kind of like marijuana, where federally illegal, but in states is that they're obviously Washington, Massachusetts, California, it's legal at the state level. Is the same thing is sort of happening with CBD too, is because federally they're kind of sitting on their hands as far as the scheduling of the substance, all of that kind of stuff, where FDA, DEA is saying different things. So what states are doing is they're making explicit legislation, basically saying permitting CBD recreationally for everyone, or with for certain prescribed by the doctor and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of the direction that is headed right now. And we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, it's good to see. I mean, it just seems like it's gone so mainstream. I noticed that you made a distinction between marijuana and CBD, and then the product that I have here is called Hemp bombs. So what's as Jerry Seinfeld would say, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so I think essentially the hemp bombs, you have to ask the owners exactly why they came up with it. I think initially what it was is that basically the audience that they were looking to target is that they wanted to kind of their idea for that brand was to sell primarily to like convenience stores, kind of gas stations, like through a large distributor network. And what happened is, definitely good quality of product. Like like I said, you tried it personally, and then all the ingredients in there, all that manufacturing and stuff is done in house. We own all the equipment and all that kind of stuff. But is that it wasn't necessarily intended to become the brand. I don't think it has. But whether it's because of the quality of the product or just something was right, that it's kind of exploded. And so now I would put it in sort of the top 5 to 7 brands out there. You've probably heard of a few of the other ones, but I would say, definitely top 10, but probably top 5 to 7 for sure nationally. I think there's something like 30,000 plus stores across the country. In everything from health food stores to tattoo shops to gas stations. I think they worked out a deal recently with Circle K. So we're in like Circle K's across the country. So yeah, I mean, I think initially like the packaging, the name of it was supposed to kind of catch your eye. But it's really, the brand has kind of taken on its own momentum and it's really done well.
Yeah, it was interesting when I had a couple of gummies and I was like, the next day I was like, all right, cool. Like this is nice. This is feeling pretty good. And,
right.
And those gummies taste good too. So be careful because, I was like, man, I kind of want to keep eating these gummies. They're like,
absolutely.
But I texted my friend who's just like, always on to the next thing, and he's always just kind of like on top of all the new products and gummies and edibles and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, dude, I just got one of those yesterday," and I was like, "Oh, cool, man." So then, when I checked it out, I saw all the reviews where everyone was saying really good things. So like, that's great. So like, I guess what I was trying to get at was, is there a difference between CBD that's like derived from hemp versus CBD that's derived from like a cannabis plant or some? Is there some distinction between that or?
Yeah, I mean, so it's the plant is essentially the same, but what happens is basically, different people breed it for to have higher concentrations of CBD than THC. So and actually where you're technically, although I can't exactly tell you how all the sourcing happens, because I'm not watching it myself all the time, but is that technically you're really only supposed to be sourcing from the stalk of the plant. Everything else would be is considered quote unquote not illegal, but as high basically THC content and that kind of thing. So the safest part of the plant for someone to source CBD from would be the stalk itself. But yeah, I mean, essentially, there's another brand. I hate to say, talk about other brands out there, but Charlotte's Web is really the most famous brand in our industry, and they're kind of the one that sort of started the industry itself. With they basically were hemp marijuana growers out of Colorado, and they basically kind of manufactured their own strain of CBD. THC, their own strain, but it had a really high ratio of CBD to THC. And then kind of from there, that's where, people started really getting, keyed into the benefits of CBD. There was a CNN special on it a few years ago with the girl, his name was like Charlotte Figi. She was a young girl with Dravet syndrome, which is like a really terrible, basically a case of like, frequent seizures. So that was, like I said, that really kind of kickstarted the whole thing. But yeah, it's a, the real distinction between hemp and marijuana itself is that the actual percentage of THC that's present in the plant, and so if you have 0.3% or less THC, it's considered a hemp plant. But if you have more than that, it's considered cannabis.
Yeah, I think I saw that CNN documentary. Was that the one with Sanjay Gupta? Do you know
I believe it was.
Yeah, so it was the girl. What she was experiencing, was it seizures or? Yeah.
So it's seizures, and like I said, I believe it's called Dravet syndrome, if that's the correct pronunciation. But it's basically just extremely frequent seizures, and I think she was like 5 or 6 at the time that it happened. And basically, the parents had exhausted all of the resources. Doctors couldn't help them, and so someone recommended it, and then they using medical marijuana to help treat it. And then somehow they stumbled on, a strain of CBD and THC. The Stanley brothers out in Colorado started to, like I said, specialize in. And then, from there, that, like I said, that kind of that brought along the documentary. There was a huge reduction in the girl's seizures, and that's kind of why, even to this day, that it's most associated with kind of relief from seizures, and why the Epidiolex and all that kind of stuff is the only FDA approved, CBD product right now, to treat that exact, case of Dravet syndrome that she had.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's like, we get so caught up with this bureaucratic process of, all right, well, we're just going to approve that one thing, and it's weird. I mean, I just got back from I was in the Amazon jungle for a while, and it's amazing down there. I mean, you have all these plants, the shamans, the indigenous people that live there, and who are well versed in the healing potential of the plants in the jungle, and they just go out in the jungle. They pick a plant. They're like, oh, yeah, this plant, this is good for headaches and diarrhea, depression, anxiety, if you can't get to sleep. They list off like 20 things it's good for. Oh, yeah, also you could rub it on your skin, and it's good for your skin. And, it has so many uses. But, for here in the States, it just seems like this kind of Western model. It's like, oh, we need to sort of pinpoint it, and only this can be allowed to do this and that. But it seems like, I hope we're moving more in a direction where we're going to start looking at things and being like, okay, yeah, like, take some CBD every day, and you're going to feel like really good, because it's going to be good for like 70 different things for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it seems like, maybe we're too reliant on just thinking that there's a cure-all or a fix-all. There's one thing. We're just used to popping something and getting over it, when more it's kind of an integrative thing. It can be used preventatively. It can be used, while you're getting sick, after all that kind of stuff. So, and definitely, like you said, I think that with CBD specifically, it is because of the general endocannabinoid system that we have in our bodies, that it isn't just associated with one thing. There isn't necessarily one benefit only. So, like you said, potentially there's a lot of medicines out there that could be like that.
Are there any sort of like, do you face any sort of resistance, when you're out there in the field? Are there any sort of like, I guess, objections that people have about it? I mean, do you think that like when you're talking to people about this stuff, like they're on board, or they're still like, oh, I don't know, isn't that a drug?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's potentially a little bit of that. I think it was more a year, because I've been with the company for about a year and a half now, but I would say more, within the last few months, there hasn't been too much resistance. But before, like, going back to a year and a half ago when I first started, there was definitely some of those questions being issued, especially by the sort of like the large distributors and the large businesses that would be retailing the product. Like I said, the whole Circle K thing was a pretty big victory, for our company, because that was 500, 1,000, 2,000, however many the store locations. But it was also just, a vote of confidence in the product itself, and saying, hey, we're willing to put your product up on our shelves with, 5-hour energy and whatever else is in the Orbit bubble gum and all that kind of stuff. So that was definitely, like I said, that was kind of a moment for us where we realized that, things were, there were changes in perception of the product kind of, nationally. So.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of moving quickly too. Like it's definitely moving fast. I mean, like I said before, it was like 5 years ago, CBD wasn't even really in my, realm of thinking, and then all of a sudden now it's everywhere. I feel like all of a sudden now it's everywhere, and even people. I just feel more comfortably even talking about it with people like my parents or like family members. I'm just like, if someone's talking about something, and it's a good like intro, I mean, like it's a good intro for me to be like, instead of being like, hey, drop some acid, like I'm like, hey, listen, like, you should check out CBD. There was this documentary on CNN, and they did a whole thing. So it sort of like validates it for them in their head. If authority figures are talking about it on television, and if they're seeing it more and more places, then it's like, oh, okay. And the great thing about it is that it comes from a plant. It's all natural, so it's not going to like really. It's not going to interfere with any sort of medications, the way that a lot of these pharmaceutical companies are pushing things. And it's like, oh, side effects may include like cannibalism and murder, and it's like, it's pretty safe, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe drowsiness. I haven't heard of anyone vomiting or anything like that. Maybe, but as far as like I said, the negative reactions, they're very few. And like you're saying, as far as, people of notoriety talking about it and getting a lot of publicity is that, even today we were watching at the office that Dr. Oz was talking about CBD oil, on his channel. So it has, the growth has been pretty explosive over the past, I'd say, 3 to 6 months, especially. And really, a lot of that has to do with just like I said, a lot of media. Personally, I work in on the digital PR side, so we see a ton of the huge media websites talking about it all the time. And so, I think that's a lot of, especially for the young people and people reading that stuff, there's really no questions over the value of the product itself. And definitely for people that you're trying to, ease into other, substances or marijuana itself. Is that definitely CBD would be perfect for that.
Yeah, it's it's amazing. He's easing people into other substances. Yeah, it is sort of. People used to say say this as a bad thing, like marijuana is a gateway drug, and it's like, yeah, it's a gateway to other awesomeness. There's a whole new world out there that you're not exploring, and you're living a life of fear and paranoia when you could be chilling out a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the whole, I don't know as much as some people do about it, but the whole MAPS project thing, right, is that the MDMA therapy and the, using mushrooms and all that kind of stuff, is that there's, a tremendous amount of, therapeutic value in all those things. And even in my personal experiences, and I think part of the issue with that is that people just don't have the experience, right? So it's sort of the fear of the unknown, coupled with the fact that, they've always grown up knowing that drugs are bad or whatever. And really, it's, someone who sort of had those, experiences early in life, or, within the past few years, is that they have been, part of my own self-therapy for, many years. And I don't know if I'll continue to always take them and, all that kind of stuff. I don't know how long, but as far as, I've seen a lot of personal, benefit myself, and I can see how, used with, patients or, people struggling with PTSD, anxiety, any of those kind of things, whether it's CBD, marijuana, MDMA, mushrooms, you name it, could be extremely helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot, and I think MAPS is doing some really great things, and there's a lot of organizations, the Hefter Institute, the Beckley Foundation, Imperial College of London, they're really, I'm super stoked to see that all this research, all this research going on, and it's really great because it's appealing. If you could present something to people that says, "Hey, this is helping people, legitimately helping people," and we have tests to prove it. We've done these studies. We can show it. Then all of a sudden people start to go, oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess if it's helping people, let's check it out. But if for whatever reason, you're just hey, you're going to have this and you're going to have the time of your life, they're going to be people seem a little bit more resistant to that. Oh, I don't know. I might have too much fun. I don't want to get too out of control. That's what I hear a lot when I talk about other sorts of psychedelics and even marijuana too. This idea that getting stoned and losing control, and it's a bad thing. It's hey, maybe it's not for you, maybe it's not your cup of tea, but to throw CBD in the same bag as THC would be sort of incorrect, because on one hand you have your benefits that THC can provide you with, but you also have a fun aspect of that too. And then for CBD, it's hey, this is just a component that'll help you with some other things, and that might relax you and might help you chill out for a little bit. And what's wrong with that? Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And potentially that's my fault to try to, group those things in together. But CBD is definitely not something I would say that's, a recreational thing to do to have fun, or not necessarily to have fun or get high or anything like that. It's definitely something that, you can use in your daily life, but, it's not going to disorient you in any way, or make you lose control. It's absolutely just, supposed to sort of enhance, your everyday life. And like you said, it's more of one of those things that's intended to run in the background while you're going through daily life, and just, make it a little bit easier to function every day.
Yeah, I like that. Run in the background, like a new operating system or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what's what's your favorite way to take it? I mean, I like the gummies just because I got a sweet tooth and and it's always enjoyable to chew a couple gummies. What do you prefer?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the oils, the tinctures that you take under the tongue, or the gummies are always good too. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a rundown of the different products that we offer. We have, to be honest, we have probably maybe the biggest, if not one of the biggest product selections out there. We probably have something like 200-300 products.
Oh yeah, I really like the cream too. What is it called? Like the freeze or whatever? That was awesome.
Yeah, so I actually, I don't know if it'll go to print at all or go online, but I was actually doing some research on behalf of a journalist yesterday who was going to write for Huffington Post Health, and she was basically asking me to get some quotes for her on CBD for massage. And so some of our clients are chiropractors and massage therapy, have run massage therapy clinics. So it was one of those things, and even they would say that they're complete advocates for the product. They use that pain freeze that you're mentioning, or the pain gel before and after for people, athletes, and all that kind of stuff. So that was something interesting that we did yesterday. We have the pain gel. We have for people that do the vaping. I know that Paul Pierce actually out in Boston just released his own line of CBD vape oils. We have
the basketball player.
Basketball player, yep.
Nice.
And actually, too, like I said, I feel like I'm giving so many brand shout outs here, but Dan Bilzerian also has his own cannabis company now that has vape oils and stuff like that out in the West Coast.
Everybody's getting in on the green rush, right?
Everybody's getting in on it. So those are a couple guys, but yeah, we have the vape oils. We have I think we have at least 12 different flavors in that. We have the vape pens, so kind of disposables that you can do. We have capsules. We have, like I said, the oil. We even have a pet product that people can use for their pets. Good for cats, dogs. I've even seen people use it for horses, and that's in beef and chicken flavor. We've got. We're excited that we've got a new tattoo cream that's coming out. So it's sort of like an aftercare ointment that we're really
nice.
Cool. We actually have a. I don't know if you're familiar with the website. It's called Bro Bible. It's pretty. Yeah. So we have working on a campaign right now. In the next week or so, we'll have some stuff posted on that. We've got beard products too. So sort of like a beard balm and a beard oil. I'm just scrambling my brain a little bit to think what we got. But we have essentially we have just a bunch of products out there. If you'd like to come visit the site, or if any one of your listeners wants to visit the site, it's just hempbombs.com, HEMPBOMBS.com, and you can check us out there.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, and you guys, we're in this thing together, man. Hemp Bombs and Mycadelic, we're doing it because, like I said, I've really experienced a noticeable change in my life after using this, and I've been someone that's always sort of struggled to remain in a consistent state of mood, struggled to really maintain my daily practices. I want to do them. I want to get up. I want to do my meditation. I want to do my breathing. I want to do the things that help me be productive and successful throughout the day. But yeah, I think maybe I had a little anxiety. Maybe I was a little restless and not able to go to sleep. And I have to say, without a doubt, since taking it, I don't know how much more of an endorsement I can give. It's just it's really great. It's really, really great. And so there's going to be a link in the show and for every show, and I'll be talking about it. And of course, people can go. For listeners of this show, for you guys, who I love greatly and dearly very much, you can go and you can put in Mike 15 at the checkout page, and you get 15% off, right?
Yep, absolutely. And that's going to be, as long as we're working together, that will be live. So it's not like an expiring coupon or anything. So, first time purchase, second time purchase, whatever, we'll make sure that you can get 15% off.
Yeah, and you guys got to go and buy as much stuff as you possibly can so I can keep getting I honestly just want more Hemp Bombs products. I don't even care about no, I shouldn't say that. Commission's nice, but I honestly I just love it. I really do. And it's good to hear people, I mean, I love how we kind of started the conversation off when we were talking about, these things. So it's good to see that like the people behind this are really kind of, true believers and really in this for the greater good. Where do you see things moving to? I mean, I know I kind of like a two-part question here. One for like the world of CBD and hemp bombs, like in general, like where you see things moving to, and then also like where do you see this, you moving to in your career, and you were mentioning like success and attending the Aubrey course and all this kind of stuff. Maybe it's kind of a big question, but just vision for the future, if you will.
Yeah. So as far as one thing I'll want to squeeze in there before
Sure.
I get answering the question is true. It's one of the biggest testaments of any company, any product or whatever is do the people that work there use it? And I could say that pretty much almost every employee of our 200 or so employees at the company actually takes the product regularly. So and they all seem to enjoy it. So it's something that is definitely improved even in-house. As far as your question, hemp bombs, it is that the market is getting a lot more competitive now. We're sort of having to step up our game, to make sure that we can make it and and survive as a business out there, because like I mentioned the Paul Pierce and Dan Bilzerian and all these people, all these people are starting to get into the industry, and it's only so big.
Yeah.
But
fuck those guys, okay?
Yeah.
Because like P. Diddy came out with like a vodka. I mean, I never drink that shit. Actually, I got to really check what I'm saying here, because I think maybe that might be successful. But basically, what I'm saying is, if you have a good product, you have a good product, and the product speaks for itself. You don't need like dancing celebrities to endorse it. But yeah, anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
No, we appreciate it. That's good feedback for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think what we're going to continue to do is just to build our product line as well. So something unique is that we're just testing out different products. Like I said, you obviously want to be in as many markets as you possibly can be. So with hemp bombs, like I said, we've got a number of products, but our tattoo cream is launching in the next 2 weeks. And we will continue, doing the product testing to see. So there's always going to be things coming out for that. One of the cool things, like I said, we have, an advantage over other companies is a lot of these CBD companies just don't have, the ability to, turn out new products like as quickly as we can, because we essentially have all the manufacturing, all the design, packaging, everything. None of that is outsourced, which is really good, So you continue to keep an eye on that. Other than that, we're just trying to build the brand. So it is, continue to build our reputation. This has obviously been awesome getting to talk on this podcast with you. I'm excited to share our product with your listeners. So that's some. And as far as me personally, I definitely see myself continuing with the company for the next couple of years at least. We're expanding into other brands and other markets as well. We have a pure, like a pets brand called Pure Paws coming out in the next month or so, and that's going to be completely dedicated to the pets. So there's going to be things like paw creams, pet shampoos, pet oils.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I really appreciated that you sent that the thing for dogs, the pet thing. What can CBD do? Because like, to be honest, I live with a crazy barking dog, and I'm like, maybe if I give him a couple drops, like he'll chill out. Like, what kind of effects could it have for pets, for animals? Same?
Yeah. So very similar. So what I've read about that is that basically pets have an endocannabinoid system similar to humans. So it's really not all that different. Is that they kind of take it, has sort of works on the same receptors within their bodies. And then, they sort of have receive the same benefits as we do as far as the lessened anxiety, lowered anxiety, just sort of improved mood, maybe ease, like better sleep, all those kind of things. So I know that I'm not personally a dog owner or a pet owner, but I know that, a lot of people talk about things like separation anxiety, or, their dogs or pets might get scared during thunderstorms. And so those are the kind of situations when maybe one of those products is handy.
But if your neighbor has like a crazy mangy mutt that just won't shut up at night, you could break into their house and drop some CBD oil in their water bowl, right? And then it'll calm them down.
sneak in.
You guys endorse that? Yeah. All right. Nice. Just
Maybe
kidding. Just kidding.
About, the endorsement.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, and then so like for yourself, I mean, you know, I could imagine a lot of people listening to the show are probably thinking like, you know, I mean, obviously, I hope people got some good info about CBD and about hemp bombs and like, you know, what it can do and all that kind of stuff. But like, you know, thinking of kind of circling back to what we were talking about before we got into it was you know, really finding a work that's like in alignment with something that you believe in, and I know that's something that you're doing. And like, what I guess what would you tell people out there who are like looking to maybe get into this field, or you know, do something that they feel sort of passionately about or in alignment with, you know, in this sort of world of cannabis and CBD?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would say that there's plenty of opportunity coming. So it's one of those things that the economy right now, and also like I said, the industry itself, because of the growth of the industry, is that there are a lot of opportunities if people want to get into generally the cannabis industry or CBD. You know, I think they're projected to be like a $20 billion plus industry within the next 4 or 5 years. So it is really skyrocketing. You know, and something I would say is just some practical advice that I'm learning now is that, you know, kind of most of what you'll learn, you know, you will learn a lot of, you know, kind of doing your role at work, or, you know, doing your kind of your function at work, but is, you know, take some time in your spare time to do some research and to basically kind of step up your skills. Because that's something that, you know, I was actually an English major in college. You know, digital marketing was not something that I was planning on doing. I thought I initially wanted to be a college professor for a little while, or that I wanted to be a journalist or whatever. And then I kind of evolved into the position that I have right now. So, you know, one would be maybe not afraid to stretch yourself to learn, you know, when in your off time and all that kind of stuff. You know, and then kind of like I said, the industry is growing, so there'll be opportunities there. And then if you want, you can always visit our website and, you know, look for career opportunities if you really want to jump in.
Oh, nice. I like that. Awesome. Yeah. So that's great. So then, and then you're going to be attending this seminar. What are you looking to get out of that? I'm curious. I mean, you know, I've never really attended anything like that. I sort of similar. Actually, I started off as an English major too. I actually wound up switching majors, but then, yeah, I kind of just fell into the line of work that I got into. I kind of just fell into podcasting, just figured it all out as I started going along. And, yeah, never really took any like, you know, seminars or courses or anything, but I find it really interesting. What are you hoping to get out of that for yourself?
Well, I mean, just, you know, kind of to meet, I mean, one would be to meet the people. So sort of, you know, they are sort of your heroes a little bit, or your models, like you said earlier, for what you want your life to look like. So one is just brushing up with them and you know, getting to speak with them and you know, hear what they talk about, maybe potentially their, you know, daily habits and routines and all that kind of stuff. But two is, you know, I sort of don't have, you know, as much as I have expectations, I don't have expectations. So it's one of those things where I'm hoping just to, you know, be able to have an experience of, you know, self-growth, self-development over the weekend, you know, potentially challenge myself where I can find opportunities to do so. You know, and I, you know, like I said, I have an entrepreneurship dinner that that I'm planning to go to. I don't know how many people are going to be in attendance. I don't know what exactly the format is going to be. But yeah, like I said, kind of the second part of your question before we asked, where I see myself is that I do want to, you know, eventually, you know, move off into entrepreneurship probably at some point. And, you know, digital marketing has been a great asset to me because it allows you to see kind of how all of the, you know, what it takes to basically run an online business, which, you know, I'm sure that, you know, Aubrey is obviously on it. I know is more than just, you know, an online business or an online retailer, but I'm sure most of their commerce is done online. You know, it's something that maybe I'll be able to pick up from him too, or you know, in the future. So, like I said, I'm more in it to just get to experience sort of like the tribe that they talk about all the time, and to, you know, just commiserate with like-minded individuals, and like I said, pick up maybe some pointers or some things that I can incorporate into my daily life.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And it just really triggered a bell in my head to really maybe start looking into doing something like that. For myself, I think that earlier when we were talking before, I was in this sort of spiritual crisis like period where I just really was very not open to any sort of thing, like any sort of marketing thing or anything like that. And but now I feel much more whole, much more like I've completed the hero's journey. I've come back to the world and I'm ready to sort of input and inject everything back in there. So who knows, maybe in the future, maybe in a couple of years I'll be doing a seminar or something. So yeah, I mean I'm always open to exploring new ideas and learning, and there's so many great people to learn from out there, and and yourself. I mean, I learned a lot today, and so I really appreciate you coming on the show and doing all this. Any kind of closing thoughts? Any last things you want to say to the people out there?
Yeah, well, thank you for tuning in. Definitely am a fan of your content and kind of your own self-development. So I think it's something that is very relatable to a lot of people, is that they, trying to work on themselves, trying to, like you said, take the hero's journey, and then put their own creativity back into the world and sort of their own creation. So something definitely that resonates with me, and I'm sure your audience, they wouldn't be here otherwise. So more than the product, I am here to obviously talk about the company and everything, but is that we are kind of sharing the same journey, and it's something that I'm challenging myself to do too. Podcasting and like I said, stand up and all kinds of stuff are sort of things that I'm interested in, and it's probably why I going to like the Aubrey Marcus thing or speaking with you, is that you guys have followings are leading lives that I would like to model for myself as well. So potentially the more that you pursue your own path or pursue your own journey, however you want to call it, is the more that you empower others to do that. So it is a really powerful thing. And we, I appreciate you having me on here, and wish you the best of luck as you move forward.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Josh. I appreciate that. And I got to say, I see a lot of potential in you, man, to expand on this. I mean, as somebody like myself, I've done, a ton of podcasts and stuff. I know it's not easy to, come on and just start, recording and chatting. And, we didn't have any pre-planned structure to this. I sort of just started recording and just told you I was recording like halfway through, and, and we just kind of went wherever the conversation went. And so I got to say, good job, man. And, just keep doing what you're doing and moving in this direction. And, for all the people out there, thank you so much for tuning in and to listening to this. As always, thank you to the people that support the show and for all the Patreon donors and everything like that. And and if you want to go and get some CBD, I highly recommend Hemp Bombs. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't get a benefit out of it. And I know what some of you people are thinking, like, oh, what is this, like a fucking product placement show? Like, you sell out. I thought you were anti-corporation and state and all that stuff. And it's like, no, man, I'm positive things that work. I'm positive happiness and health and wealth and prosperity for everybody. And I felt it from using Hemp Bombs, and I'm happy, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. So go to their website, go to hempbombs.com, use Mike15, and you'll get 15% off of some really awesome stuff, some really dope stuff. And tell me what you think, and tell Josh what you think. Reach out on Hemp Bombs, contact them, and thanks a lot. Thanks again. Peace out, everyone.